The warning signal echoed through the command bridge of the alien dreadnought, the Vorak, with a low hum that resonated through the metallic walls. Commander Zorak leaned back in his command chair, his elongated fingers drumming rhythmically on the armrests as he listened to humanity's ultimatum. The Earth fleet's warning was brief, almost humble in its simplicity. "Leave our space, or face the consequences." Zorak scoffed, his sharp teeth glinting as he grinned at his officers gathered around him. "They believe they can make demands?" he sneered, his voice carrying a note of cruel amusement. "These humans know nothing of true power." Around him, his officers chuckled, sharing in their leader's condescension. Zorak's people, the Ryrek, had ruled over countless star systems, their power bolstered by centuries of technological superiority. To him, Earth was nothing more than a minor speed bump on the path to conquest. Still, the warning intrigued him. This wasn't the terrified plea he had expected from a young, isolated world. There was a tension in their voice that hinted at resolve, perhaps even defiance. Interesting, he thought. Futile, but interesting. As Zorak mulled over the message, thousands of miles away, Captain Elias stood resolutely on the bridge of the Earth Command ship, the Resolute Dawn. He watched the stars through the viewport, his face set in determined lines as he addressed his crew. "Status on the fleet?" he asked, his tone steady, belying the storm brewing within him. Lieutenant Mendez glanced up from her console, her fingers dancing over the controls. "All ships in position, Captain. Cloaking systems are online, and defensive stations report readiness." She hesitated, glancing at him. "Are you sure they'll fall for it, sir?" Elias allowed himself a small, grim smile. "They think we're easy prey. That arrogance will be their undoing." He looked around at his crew, the men and women who had trusted him through countless skirmishes and skated the razor's edge of survival. He saw determination in their eyes, a hardened unity forged by the knowledge of what they fought for, the very survival of Earth. Dr. Lena Hart, seated at her workstation, lifted her head at Elias's words. As the lead scientist responsible for the cloaking technology that shielded their ships from enemy scans, Lena had poured years of work and sacrifice into her role. She glanced at the captain, her expression thoughtful. "They won't know what hit them," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. She didn't doubt Elias, but the pressure weighed heavily. This was the culmination of everything they had fought to develop, every sleepless night, and every last-minute breakthrough. The warning had been sent, and now, all they could do was wait. On the Vorak, Zorak was growing restless. The humans hadn't responded, and their fleet was maddeningly elusive. He slammed a fist down on the console, snarling. "Why can't we detect their ships?" A nervous lieutenant approached, offering up a series of sensor readouts. "It's strange, Commander. We've picked up faint signals, ghost readings, but they vanish whenever we tried to lock on." Zorak's lips pulled back in frustration. He was not accustomed to such impertinence from his enemies. He had expected Earth's defenses to crumble the moment his fleet entered their system. Instead, the humans seemed almost prepared. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind, but he pushed it aside. "If they want to hide, let them," he growled. "Send the first wave toward their defense stations. Let's make this quick." As the alien ships advanced, Elias watched the tactical display on the Resolute Dawn. Tiny dots representing Earth's hidden ships formed a defensive net, ready to close in on the advancing Ryrek forces. He felt the weight of his decisions press down on him. If his calculations were wrong, they would all be vaporized in a matter of minutes. But if they succeeded, the alien fleet would pay dearly. "On my mark," Elias called out. The tension on the bridge was a live wire, buzzing just beneath the surface. He knew his crew could feel it, the anticipation and the fear mingling into a quiet, shared resolve. The first wave of alien ships entered the trap zone, unaware of the cloaked Earth vessels lurking nearby. Elias's hand hovered over the control panel, waiting for the perfect moment. "Now!" he ordered. In an instant, the Resolute Dawn and its sister ships uncloaked, unleashing a barrage of coordinated fire that tore into the alien formation. Explosions blossomed across the void as the Ryrek ships were caught off guard, their shields unable to withstand the sudden onslaught. The tactical display lit up with red blips as alien vessels went dark, one by one. On the Vorak, Zorak's eyes widened as he watched the chaos unfold on his own screens. What is this? He spat, his voice barely above a whisper. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the unexpected ambush. They use some kind of cloaking technology, stammered his tactical officer, his voice laced with disbelief. We couldn't detect them at all. The commander's jaw clenched, fury flaring in his dark eyes. Then adapt. Reposition the fleet and target their cloaked vessels with full power. He refused to believe that a mere human fleet could best him. His pride demanded a response, a crushing blow to remind these primitives of their place. Back on the Resolute Dawn, the crew erupted in cheers as they watched the first wave of alien ships fall. Elias, however, remained composed, his gaze fixed on the display. He knew this was only the beginning. The Ryrek would recover quickly. The advantage they held was fleeting. Dr. Hart approached him, a faint smile breaking through her otherwise serious demeanor. We did it, Elias. The cloaking worked, just as we hoped. Elias nodded, allowing himself a brief moment of satisfaction. For now. But they'll adapt soon enough. Prepare the next phase. We'll show them that humanity is not as helpless as they believed. A tense silence fell over the bridge as they prepared for the next wave. The alien fleet was reorganizing, sending signals to coordinate a stronger counterattack. Elias glanced at his crew, their faces now set with grim determination. He knew they would fight to the last, whatever the outcome. Remember, he said quietly, we fight for every life on Earth, for everyone who can't be here with us today. No matter what happens, they will remember this fight. Let's make sure it's one they'll talk about for generations. The bridge crew nodded, sharing in their captain's resolve. The stage was set, the stakes laid bare. And as the second wave of alien ships moved into position, Elias and his crew braced themselves for the battle of their lives. The Resolute Dawn shuddered as the alien fleet launched its renewed assault. Fire tore through the void, narrowly missing the hull of Captain Elias's ship, bathing the bridge in red warning lights and the harsh blare of alarms. Elias gripped the edge of his console, his jaw set, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. The Ryrek had regrouped faster than anticipated. Captain, shields are holding at 60%, but we can't take much more of this. Lieutenant Mendez called out, her fingers flying over her console as she rerouted power to the defensive systems. Elias responded with a terse nod, his mind racing. They had managed to catch the Ryrek by surprise once, but that trick was spent. The aliens had adjusted their formations, covering gaps and spreading out, making it difficult for the Earth fleet to break through with another ambush. The initial strike had given them a chance, but now they were in the thick of a full-scale battle. Dr. Hart, Elias called over his shoulder. How are the disruptors holding up? Dr. Lena Hart, seated at the science station, looked up, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of her monitor. They're stable, for now, she replied, her voice tinged with a mix of relief and worry. But they weren't designed to run indefinitely. We'll have to recharge them soon, or they'll overload. Recharge? Elias echoed, his tone edged with urgency. We're barely holding our own as it is. Hart met his gaze with a look that was both firm and apologetic. Captain, I'm working on a solution, but physics doesn't care about the Ryrek or our plans. We need time, either that, or we risk losing the disruptors entirely. The ship rocked again as a nearby blast sent a shockwave reverberating through the hull. Elias clenched his fists, fighting the surge of helplessness that threatened to overtake him. They were in a precarious situation, their every advantage eroding as the battle wore on. Mendez, pull us back into the asteroid field, Elias ordered. If we can't outgun them, we'll outmaneuver them. Mendez didn't hesitate. Aye, Captain. Engaging thrusters and plotting course. Her fingers moved swiftly, and the Resolute Dawn veered, slipping into the cover of a dense asteroid cluster. The alien ships pursued, but their larger size and more cumbersome engines made it difficult for them to follow at the same speed. Elias glanced at Hart. This should buy you a little time. Get me those disruptors recharged, no matter what it takes. Hart nodded, already absorbed in her calculations, her mind racing for a solution that might extend the disruptor's functionality. Aboard the Vorak, Commander Zorak watched with growing fury as his ships struggled to navigate the asteroid field. His sharp claws dug into the arms of his command chair, and his dark eyes burned with a venomous glare. These humans, he spat. They fight like rodents, hiding in the shadows, darting from cover to cover. But shadows won't save them. Commander, we could try launching probes into the asteroid field, suggested his tactical officer. They could help us map out the humans' movements. Zorak nodded, a malicious smile curving his lips. Do it. If they wish to hide, we will smoke them out. The tactical officer immediately deployed a swarm of small, maneuverable probes. The devices darted into the asteroid field, emitting pulses that created a crude but effective map of the area. With each scan, the humans' hiding spots were further revealed, narrowing their options. Back on the Resolute Dawn, the crew watched their screens as the Ryrek probes approached. Captain, they're scanning the asteroid field, Mendez reported, a note of concern in her voice. They'll have our position in minutes. Elias frowned, feeling the walls close in around them. Hart, we're running out of time. Tell me you've got something. Dr. Hart's eyes gleamed with a spark of inspiration as she looked up from her console. I think I can reroute the auxiliary power to give us one more burst. It won't last long, but it might disable enough of their systems to buy us an escape window. It's risky, Mendez murmured, overhearing. If we burn out auxiliary power, we'll be defenseless once it's gone. Elias weighed the choice, feeling the weight of every life aboard pressing down on his shoulders. The image of Earth, fragile and blue, flickered through his mind. He had to protect it, no matter the cost. Do it, he ordered, his voice filled with quiet conviction. Give us everything we've got. Hart nodded, her hands moving with newfound urgency. Rerouting power, now. A faint hum filled the bridge as the energy transfer began, growing in intensity as the ship's systems redirected every available joule to the disruptors. The Resolute Dawn vibrated with the surge of power, lights flickering as the auxiliary systems were drained. Target the lead Ryrek ships, Elias commanded. Let's make them regret chasing us. The disruptors flared to life, sending out a powerful wave that rippled through space, striking the alien vessels at their core. Several Ryrek ships flickered, their shields sparking before collapsing entirely. Without their defenses, they were vulnerable, and Elias wasted no time. Fire all batteries, he ordered. A barrage of plasma and missile fire erupted from the Resolute Dawn, tearing through the exposed hulls of the enemy ships. One by one, the Ryrek vessels crumpled under the onslaught, leaving trails of debris and shattered metal drifting in the asteroid field. For the first time, a glimmer of hope sparked among the crew. But the victory was short-lived. Captain, Mendez whispered, her face pale as she studied her screen. More of their ships are closing in. At least 3 carriers and an entire squadron. They're swarming us. Elias's heart sank. He knew they couldn't hold off another wave, not with their power reserves dwindling. He met Hart's gaze, her expression mirroring his desperation. This might be the end. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Elias ordered, forcing the words out, even as the weight of impending defeat bore down on him. If we're going down, we'll go down fighting. As the Ryrek ships closed in, an ominous silence fell over the bridge. The crew braced themselves, every face reflecting the same unyielding resolve. They had known the risks, yet here they stood, ready to face the inevitable with courage. But just as the first enemy salvo lit up the radar, a new blip appeared on the tactical screen. Captain, there's another signal coming from the edge of the asteroid field, Mendez said, her voice tinged with disbelief. It's a friendly ship, no, a whole fleet. Reinforcements from Earth. A murmur of astonishment rippled through the crew as the reinforcements surged forward, their formation tight and their weapons locked on the Ryrek. Elias allowed himself a brief, relieved smile. Looks like Earth wasn't ready to give up on us just yet. The Ryrek, caught between the renewed might of Earth's forces and the strategic cover of the asteroid field, hesitated, their once unstoppable formation splintering under the combined assault. As explosions rocked the void, Elias knew they had one final chance to drive the invaders back. "Let's finish this," he ordered, his voice carrying a fierce determination that reignited the crew's spirits. The resolute Dawn surged forward, leading the charge, as humanity's fleet united for one last, decisive stand. The asteroid field was a blaze of light and shrapnel as Earth's reinforcements joined the fray, the reinvigorated fleet surging forward in a coordinated strike. The once dominant Ryrek ships, now caught between the original Earth fleet and the fresh arrivals, scrambled to regroup under the unexpected onslaught. Captain Elias's voice cut through the bridge's hum of activity. "All ships tight in formation. Reinforcements, hold their flank. We've got them on the ropes, but don't let up. Press forward until they break." Lieutenant Mendez's eyes gleamed with the spark of renewed hope as she glanced up from her console. "Captain, we're tracking critical damage across multiple enemy ships. They're struggling to maintain their formation." Elias allowed himself a thin smile. "Good. Let's make sure they remember this battle, and that they never return." Dr. Lena Hart joined them at the front of the bridge, her gaze intense as she studied the tactical screen. "They weren't expecting this. If we can keep the pressure on, they might have no choice but to retreat." The resolute Dawn led the charge, maneuvering through the fractured Ryrek lines with precision and speed. Earth's combined fleet pummeled the enemy, laser fire illuminating the darkness of space, a relentless barrage that left no quarter for the Ryrek to recover. Yet Elias knew this wasn't over. Victory was within reach, but the Ryrek commander wouldn't concede easily. As if in answer to his thoughts, the resolute Dawn suddenly rocked, a powerful explosion erupting from the nearby flagship of the Ryrek fleet. The vessel listed, sparks flying as its engine sputtered, before a massive fireball consumed it, scattering debris across the void. It was a victory, yet something felt wrong. "Captain!" Mendez's voice was tense, her face pale. "There's a massive energy spike from one of the remaining Ryrek carriers. I think they're preparing a last-ditch attack." Elias's heart clenched. He knew what was coming. This was the Ryrek's final, desperate move. If they couldn't claim victory, they would aim to take Earth's fleet down with them. He spun to face Hart, his voice sharp. "Hart, we need that disruptor online. If they're preparing a power surge, it's going to be catastrophic." Hart's fingers were already flying over her console, recalculating power outputs and bypassing damaged circuits. "I'm on it, Captain. But we're running on reserves. This might be the last pulse we can manage." "Make it count," he replied, steeling himself as the bridge shook under another blast. Dr. Hart adjusted the disruptor's calibration, muttering under her breath as she worked. The seconds ticked by, each moment stretching as the crew watched the display, tension thickening with every tick. The Ryrek carrier began to glow, a dangerous charge building within its core. Mendez whispered, "If they unleash that, it'll wipe out half our fleet." Elias straightened, his gaze firm. "Hart, now or never." With a final keystroke, Hart activated the disruptor. A wave of energy pulsed out from the resolute Dawn, rippling through space in a crackling surge. It struck the Ryrek carrier just as it began its power build-up, disrupting the delicate balance of energy within the ship's reactor. A blinding explosion tore through the enemy vessel, fragments of the carrier spinning out in fiery arcs. The shockwave rocked every ship within range, sending a violent tremor through the resolute Dawn that rattled the bridge and threw the crew off balance. Elias grabbed onto the edge of his chair, bracing himself as the impact shook them to their core. When the shaking subsided, a stunned silence filled the bridge. The tactical screen showed a field littered with the remains of Ryrek's ships. The enemy fleet was in tatters, broken and scattered, their fighting force decimated. Mendez exhaled in relief, her voice thick with disbelief. "Captain, they're retreating. They've broken formation. We did it." Elias didn't respond immediately. He took a steadying breath, feeling the weight of the battle pressing down on him. The sight of the retreating Ryrek was both a triumph and a reminder of what they had nearly lost. But they had done it. They had held the line, against all odds. Dr. Hart placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her expression both relieved and exhausted. Elias, we won. Earth is safe. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. We held our ground, Lena. And I think they'll think twice before trying this again. Just as the bridge crew allowed themselves a moment of relief, the proximity alarm blared, an insistent sound that filled the room with a renewed sense of dread. Elias's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the display. Captain, another energy signature, Mendez reported, her voice taut with disbelief. It's enormous. I think it's a self-destruct from the Ryrek command ship. A hush fell over the bridge. The Ryrek weren't just retreating, they were planning a parting blow. If the command ship detonated, the blast radius would sweep through the asteroid field and annihilate everything in its path. Full reverse, all ships! Elias barked, adrenaline surging. Get us out of range, now! Mendez scrambled to redirect power to the engines, her face pale as she calculated their chances. We're moving, but it's close, Captain. We might not clear the blast in time. Elias's mind raced. He couldn't just abandon the fleet, not when victory was so close. He glanced at Hart, an idea forming, reckless but the only one they had left. Hart, can we divert power to the disruptor and aim it toward the command ship? Use it to destabilize their reactor? Hart hesitated, reading the desperation in his gaze. That might work, but it'll overload the disruptor completely. If we use it again, it'll be out of commission, maybe permanently. Elias met her eyes, a fierce determination burning in his. One last push, Lena. We've come too far to lose now. Hart nodded, her fingers moving swiftly over her console as she redirected the disruptor's energy, focusing its final pulse toward the Ryrek command ship. She glanced back at Elias, giving him a nod. Ready, Captain? Fire! The disruptor fired one last pulse, a searing beam that connected with the command ship's core, fracturing its reactor. The vessel began to tremble, its structure warping under the strain of the destabilized energy. Seconds later, a brilliant explosion erupted, but instead of a massive, sweeping shockwave, it collapsed inward, contained by the disruptor's interference. The crew watched in awe as the implosion swallowed the command ship, its devastating energy condensed into a single, fiery point before flickering out, leaving only silence in its wake. Mendez broke the silence, her voice choked with emotion. Captain, we survived. It's over. Elias exhaled, the tension finally releasing from his shoulders as he looked around at his crew, their faces reflecting the same exhaustion and relief he felt. They had done it. They had pushed back against an enemy that considered them weak, defied every expectation, and emerged victorious. He turned to Dr. Hart, offering her a nod of gratitude. Lena, we couldn't have done this without you. That disruptor saved us all. Hart gave a small, weary smile. All in a day's work, Captain. As the bridge settled, Elias addressed his crew one last time. Remember this day. The galaxy will remember it too. Today, humanity stood its ground. The chapter closes with the battered yet victorious fleet regrouping, savoring the hard-won peace. But the question remains, what other challenges await them in the vastness of space? The void was quiet now, a serene contrast to the chaos that had filled it only moments before. Shattered fragments of Ryrek ships drifted in space, the remnants of a once mighty fleet humbled by humanity's resilience. Captain Elias stood at the center of the resolute Dawn S bridge, feeling a mix of triumph and exhaustion settle over him. Status report, Lieutenant Mendez, he said, his voice calm but edged with weariness. Mendez scanned her console, her expression one of relief and pride. All systems operational, Captain. Minor damage to our external hull, but nothing critical. And, she added, a faint smile tugging at her lips, we've received signals of gratitude from the other ships in our fleet. We did it, sir. Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words. This was more than just a battle won, it was a testament to humanity's strength and tenacity. He glanced over at Dr. Lena Hart, who was working to stabilize the last of the disruptor's energy readings. Her face was lined with fatigue, but her eyes held the glimmer of accomplishment. "Lena," Elias called, drawing her attention. "I can't say this enough, your work saved us today. Earth owes you a debt." Hart shook her head, a modest smile breaking through. "Just doing my part, Captain. But if I'm being honest, I didn't know if the disruptor would hold up to that final burst. Luck was on our side. Luck had little to do with it," Elias replied, his tone serious. "It was your expertise, your dedication, and this crew's courage. The galaxy will remember this day." As if on cue, a message flashed on Mendez's console, interrupting the brief calm. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the remaining Ryrek forces. It's their acting commander. She wants to talk." Elias exchanged a glance with Hart, who nodded her encouragement. "Open the channel, Lieutenant," he ordered. A flickering hologram appeared in the center of the bridge, depicting a stern-faced Ryrek officer with deep-set eyes and a rigid posture. Despite the defeat evident in her expression, she held herself with the pride of a warrior. "This is Captain Elias of the Earth vessel Resolute Dawn." Elias introduced himself, his tone respectful but firm. "State your purpose." The Ryrek officer inclined her head, a reluctant gesture of acknowledgement. "I am Commander Tvar, acting leader of the Ryrek fleet. You have surprised us, Captain. We did not expect such resistance from a world as young as yours." Elias's gaze remained steady. "Then perhaps you will think twice before invading us again. Humanity seeks peace but will not surrender its freedom." Tvar's eyes narrowed, a glint of curiosity breaking through her stoic facade. "Today, you have proven that strength is not solely defined by technology or size. We have learned a hard lesson, Captain." She hesitated, as though weighing her words carefully. "The Ryrek respect power and courage, and today, humanity has earned both in our eyes. I propose a truce." Elias felt a spark of satisfaction. This was the victory they had fought for, not just survival but respect, a place among the stars that no one could deny them. He gave a curt nod. "A truce would be wise, Commander. Let this battle be a warning. Earth will defend itself, but it will also honor peace." The Ryrek commander's image flickered slightly, her eyes reflecting a guarded respect. "Then let us part ways, Captain Elias, with mutual understanding. Until we meet again." With that, the hologram faded, and the bridge returned to silence. A collective sigh of relief escaped the crew, and a few tentative smiles appeared. They had achieved the impossible, faced down an empire, and emerged with their dignity, and their lives, intact. Elias turned back to his crew, his expression softening as he met their gazes. "We've done more than survive today. We've shown them what humanity is capable of. And this is just the beginning." Hart stepped forward, her voice warm. "Captain, do you think they'll honor this truce?" Elias's smile held a trace of caution. "I believe they'll think twice before underestimating us again. They've learned that Earth is not defenseless, and perhaps, in time, respect will turn to genuine peace." The bridge fell into a contemplative silence, as each member absorbed the weight of those words. They had fought for more than victory. They had fought for recognition, to stake a claim among the stars. Just then, the proximity alarm chimed, this time in a softer, less urgent tone. "Captain," Mendez said, a note of joy in her voice, "we're receiving transmissions from Earth. High Command is hailing us." Elias's face broke into a rare, full smile. "Let's hear it." The voice of Admiral Chambers filled the bridge, resonant with pride. "Captain Elias, Dr. Hart, and the crew of the Resolute Dawn, you have done more than defend our planet. You've given humanity a legacy to be proud of. Every citizen on Earth owes you a debt of gratitude." Hart's eyes glistened, and even Mendez's usually composed expression softened. The magnitude of their achievement washed over them in waves, each word from the Admiral reaffirming the gravity of what they had accomplished. "We fought for all of us," Elias replied, his voice steady yet full of unspoken emotion. "We proved that Earth is not alone in this galaxy. This victory belongs to every human who dared to dream of freedom among the stars." "Indeed it does," Chambers replied. "We'll be waiting to welcome you home with the honor you deserve. Safe travels, Resolute Dawn. Earth is proud of you." The transmission ended, leaving a lingering silence, heavy with gratitude and pride. The bridge crew exchanged looks, each of them wearing an expression of quiet triumph. Elias took a final, sweeping look around the bridge, at the people who had become his family in this crucible of war. "All right, everyone. Let's set course for Earth. We've earned a little peace." The Resolute Dawn turned, its engines igniting as it left the remains of the battlefield behind. The crew relaxed into their seats, some closing their eyes to savor the first true peace they'd felt since the conflict began. The stars stretched ahead of them, vast and welcoming, as they made their way back to the blue planet that awaited their return. Hart lingered by Elias's side as they watched the stars through the viewport, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think this is really the end of it?" she asked, her voice low. Elias considered the question, his gaze steady. "No. This is just the beginning. The galaxy knows about us now. We've made our mark, and they'll come to see what humanity truly stands for. But whatever comes next, we'll be ready." Hart nodded, her lips curving into a soft smile. "Then I'm glad to be here for the journey, Captain." As the Resolute Dawn soared toward Earth, Elias allowed himself to relax, the weight of survival giving way to hope. They had defended their home, earned a truce, and proven that humanity was far more formidable than the galaxy had assumed. The stars beckoned, no longer indifferent and unreachable, but filled with promise, a frontier that, from this day on, knew the courage of Earth.